Day was inspirational. The way the sky was an enchanting blue with the scattered wisps of clouds, along with the fresh breeze that countered the heat from the sun. This was a type of day that should be spent under the shade of a nice tree while beautiful women fed delectable treats into one's mouth. These were the thoughts that went through Han's mind when he exited the carriage and began walking towards the line of students who were waiting to take their admittance exam into Lumen's Academy. To help prevent overcrowding of the city, the entrance exam was taking place outside the walls to the city. Looking about, Han could see tents being pitched all around as people waited until it was their time to take the exam. This defied his expectations of what getting into an academy was like, considering how movies, shows, and novels made everything seem such a smooth process. The number of tents and the overall mood reminded him of a festival that takes place in the desert where people had fun and enjoyed life. He noticed merchants going around between the tents selling their wares to various families. Reaching the line, Han saw several people in official outfits taking down information from the students. After the students finished talking to the officials, they would leave the line and head towards the sea of tents. Guessing by this process, the officials probably gave each of the students information about when the exam was taking place. This helped the line to steadily move, never getting overly long. With students going back to their respective tents, their family likely celebrated with them to keep their mentality positive. Compared to applying to university on Earth, this method seemed to take in mind the mental health of students. Master, would you care to have a seat and maybe have a refreshment? Brittany broke his chain of thought. Turning towards her, Han replied, I do not believe we will be in this line long enough, but I appreciate your thoughtfulness. The three girls looked refreshing in their new outfits. If you were to think of a word to describe their appearance, it would be refreshing. Brittany was wearing a one-piece outfit, with the top exposed the top of her bust, shoulders, and neck, and was a light green color with the skirt being slightly above her knees. Queen wore a light blue corset where the leather seemed to only cover up her nipples and push up her breasts. Her skirt went past her knees, but there was a slit on one side that went all the way down to her hips, allowing you to completely see her leg. It kind of reminded him of those Chinese dresses, at least with the skirt. Helania looked very modest in her pink outfit, where her dress covered her from the neck all the way to her ankles. The only part that was exposed was a diamond shape of exposed skin, allowing you to see her breasts pressed together and ending just below her stomach. Also, her outfit was nearly skin tight, which gave you a very nice view of all of her curves. Even though it appeared modest compared to the other two, there was no doubt that she was a sensual woman. All the dresses had his symbol on it, a five-pointed star, similar looking to a pentagram, in front of a crescent moon. Below were the words Fidelitas, Venus, Diamond, Auxilium, to describe the loyalty of his beautiful and sensual creations that would last forever while dominating anything that stood in his way. Hearing the sound of someone hastily approaching him, Han looked up to see an official who looked somewhat frazzled. Reaching him, the man bowed his head and said, My lord, I presume you are the son of Han, who met the Lady Knight? Han was somewhat taken aback by this man's sudden inquiry, replying, Yes, I am known as Han Yi. Please forgive our rudeness of having you wait in this line, my lord. We did not know when you would be arriving and had been eagerly awaiting your arrival. The official frantically bowed, afraid that the academy had offended him. Putting out his hand to let him know that he was not offended, Han tried to calm the man by saying, There is no cause for you to be so anxious. I know that my father did not mention time for when I would be coming. Do I need to provide any kind of information? I noticed officials from the academy writing down information from each of the students. The official looked horrified at his words. My lord, there is no reason for someone such as yourself to go through this process. We have already prepared everything, and the Lady Knight herself is present to escort you to make sure your experience proceeds smoothly. The man kept wringing his hands like he was trying to get rid of the sweat on his palms. Nodding his head, Han only imagined how the academy viewed him, someone that came from such a wealthy family. Guiding him towards the front of the line, Han noticed many of the students whispering to one another, trying to figure out who he was for getting such preferential treatment from the academy. At the front of the line, there was a long table with several officials sorting through a vast amount of paperwork. Waiting near the tables, the Lady Knight, Valisandra, was patiently waiting for the official to bring Han to her. She was wearing a minimalist armor outfit, which had a rectangular plate of armor, in addition to armor covering her forearms and shins. Underneath her chest plate was a white shirt, matched with a blue skirt that went to her knees. At her side, she had a light-looking sword which didn't look very elaborate, intending for function over fashion. Now that he appeared like a 16-year-old, there was a clear age difference. The Lady Knight looked like someone attending a college on Earth, so gave an upperclassman vibe. When she noticed him, her face changed from looking arrogant to respectful. My lord, I apologize for not receiving you sooner and having you wait in the line. My name is Valisandra, and I am the Lady Knight of Academic City, head of the disciplinary committee of the student council. Following your father's wishes, we have arranged for you to stay in one of the housing areas so that you may have your servants look after you. Before we head to your new home, while you are attending the academy, we will need to have you take a small practical exam. Though this may be an inconvenience, this is required for all students regardless of family background. Valisandra sounded apologetic about him having to go through such a task. Giving her a smile, Han said, It is a pleasure to meet you, Lady Knight. I am Han Yi, but you may call me Yi. My name is a generational name, so the men take the same name as their father, while a second name is added that is different. This is why I go by Yi, instead of my father's name when I'm outside my family. Motioning towards the girls, Han said, These are the servants that arrived with me, to gauge if additional servants are necessary, and introduced each of them. My Lord Han, it is a pleasure meeting you, and I hope that you will enjoy your time in Academic City, Valisandra said to him, bowing her head. Going through the entrance of the city, they made their way towards a giant tower in the middle of the city. Compared to modern-day skyscrapers, the tower didn't look much, but considering the level of technology in the world, it looked impressive, like a spear trying to pierce the heavens. On the way, Han glanced at the multitudes of shops, a majority of which catered towards students. The diversity of people was impressive. There were not only humans, but also elves, beastmen, and dwarves. The beastmen showed the most diversity due to the many variations of animals. Some of them had very subtle animal characteristics, where they just had the ears and tails of the animal, while others seemed to look like bipedal animals. Seeing all the beastmen made him think about his own beastmen servants, and how this place didn't seem to have an issue with them. With concerns of how this world would react to beastmen, he had intentionally not chosen them to attend him. Walking down this road reminded him of going through the shopping district, where he had lived on Earth. There were clothing stores, catered to different customers, food stores, school supply stores, restaurants, and random stores that had a wide variety of products. It would be fun to fully explore the city, especially considering how large it was. Up ahead, Han saw a large entrance that looked similar to the entrance to the city. Just like the entrance, there was a lot of security, who appeared to be doing light security to make sure only students were entering. The interesting part of the city was how the academy was at the center of the city, unlike in fictions he had read where the school is usually off to the side. When looking at urban planning, the first thing that is created for a new city is a good indicator as to its focus. He remembered how there were some cities where the religious worship building was built first, leading to the full city being more aligned with that particular religion's mores. Academics was what ruled the city, and those in the student council were at the head of the city. A question was how similar the city was to cities in other countries. The guards, upon seeing the late night, proceeded to let them pass on through. Han understood that Valsandra had a significant amount of power, further reinforcing his prior thoughts. Entering into the academy, Han noticed a drastic difference between the outer city and the academy. This section felt a little sterile and artificial, similar to how a scientist would keep their labs clean to prevent contamination, which explained why so many students were going back into the academy. There must be a significant number of students who look to the outer city for elements that don't exist within the academy. On either side of the road, there were buildings that looked similar to dormitories at a university. Since the examination process just started, there were barely any students that looked like they were moving in. The students that he saw walked around with the confidence of someone that had been there for some time. A new student would walk around having a slight look of confusion, regardless of where they came from, because this place was a new environment. He learned that when going into a scenario such as a university, a student's ability to adapt was very crucial because those that couldn't adapt would face hardships. "These are the dorms for the majority of students, my lord," Valsandra informed him when she noticed that he became interested. In the dormitories, there are several tiers based on how much the student is able to pay. The first tier of dormitories has 4 rooms, with each one having 2 to 4 students, all connected to a common area that has a kitchen. These rooms are for those who can't afford to eat outside at restaurants or academy cafeteria. With so many people in each dorm, the overall cost per student is lowered. Next, the students have an option for a single room where 2 students live. These students normally include options related to the academy's cafeteria. We call these options meal plans, and they allow students to figure out how much they want, available based on their plan. Following this, a student is able to select slightly larger single rooms, having students who often go out to the restaurants or cafeteria to eat. Pointing out the next area that had houses, she said, "This is the housing area, where normally nobles stay. The size of the housing unit is based on their status and wealth. A bigger house will allow for a greater number of servants to live in the housing unit. The closer you are to the central tower, the bigger the house will be. Each of the student council members have houses that are near the tower, due to our status in the city." Han just nodded at this information, not particularly interested in what the nobles thought of themselves. In his eyes, nobles were just as powerless as the commoners they stepped on, having no inherent power over than what they inherited. My lord, your housing unit is very close to the houses of the student council. We purposely arranged in consideration to your father," Valsandra stammered at him. Han suspected that she thought his lack of response was due to his displeasure of where he was housed at. Chuckling to himself, it appeared that the student council was very particular towards him and thought that his father was a very influential person if he was able to bring out such wealth so casually. He self-congratulated himself for going with the platinum bar, instead of giving out the required amount. This would allow him a greater degree of freedom within the academy, though he suspected that they tried to present themselves as an institute that strove for equality amongst the nobility and commoners. When they reached the tower, Han wished that he had been allowed to use his carriage, considering how long of a walk this was. He would no doubtly have plenty of time to explore the city, so having to walk from the main entrance to the tower was tedious. The tower was cylindrical in shape and looked like someone had just stabbed a large staff into the ground. Going into the tower, the ceiling was massive and allowed a lot of natural light to come in. It kind of looked like the inside of some airports, especially the various booths that circled the inner wall. Seeing each of the signs, Han saw that they were for the different studies within the academy. My lord, this is where you can make any changes from one studies to another and turn in multiple assignments and tasks. Tasks are similar to quests, where the instructor will have the students go out and complete something and return with proof of the completion. This is very analogous to the requests inside most adventurer guilds. Mentioning the guilds, most of the guilds have a branch within this tower. All students are able to join, and completion of requests are able to count towards the completion of their respective study. We feel that this provides students with a theoretical and practical experience, so they are more likely to succeed. Many of our students often get hired by the nobility or go on to lead their respective houses. Inside of this academy, we are fortunate enough to have princes and princesses attending our academy. You will find that there is a significant advantage for those lucky to attend. I am sure that you will also find a lot of benefits, and if there are any issues, please come to me and I will be happy to sort them out, Valsandra explained, trying to appeal to him. Han enjoyed how different she was from the first time he met her in that inn. When she first came in, she acted like she was above them, but now she knew how wealthy he was, she bent over backwards for him. To be honest, he wouldn't mind if she bent over forward instead of backward. Since we at the academy have already prepared everything for you, there is no need to wait in these lines to fill out paperwork, she explained. Trying to appear pleased, Han said, I greatly appreciate that, Lady Knight. Oh no, it was our pleasure to have everything ready. And please, call me Valsandria or Val. There is no need to be so formal around me, Val said, giving him a happy smile. They continued past the booths, up some stairs, and onto the second floor. The second floor looked vastly different from the first. Instead of being completely open, they were just hallways. Past the stairs, there was a main corridor which likely wrapped around the tower, with hallways radiating out from the center. Val walked both of them down the main hallway past several hallways. Where do these corridors lead to? We seem to be going somewhere on this floor, but I am unsure about what purpose we are here for, Han spoke to Val. My lord, this floor is for practicing various fields of studies. Students can come to these levels and practice what they learn from their instructors. The room we are heading towards is designated for the usage of magic, Val patiently explained to him. Are there differences in the amount of magic a user can generate? Han probed. A part of him wanted to demonstrate how powerful he was, but undoubtedly would destroy the tower. If he wanted to, he could make it disappear in an instant. Yes, but normally for new students, we take them to the rooms designated for the exams, Val carefully explained, trying not to insult him. Master's abilities are far above those you have seen, Queen spoke up with an edge to her voice. The idea that her creator would be measured to the same standards as normal humans was insulting for her. If Master wished it, Helania was about to say, but stopped when she saw Han looking at her. Looking apologetic, Han said, My servants are protective of my honor, especially after what my family has done for them. I am glad that my father allowed them to accompany me, but they can be a bit zealous with their thoughts. We will change to a stronger testing room to accommodate my lord. Val said, looking stunned by what Han's servants were implying. "Thank you for your understanding and consideration," he replied, trying to counter the appearance that Queen and Helania presented. Han didn't want these people to know the full extent of his power, at least not at the moment. There are some things he wanted to try, but allowing them to know what he was capable of doing would place unnecessary restrictions on himself. After walking down the main hallway for quite some time, Val looked back at them and pointed at the sign next to the radiating hallway. When on this floor, these signs will let you know which field of study these rooms belong to. Including this quarter and past, all belong to the magic department. This department is one of the largest departments within the academy, due to how important magic is to every part of society. One's ability to harness magic will greatly affect how you do in this academy, though it is not explicitly spoken. When you go down the hallway, there will be an ID next to the door. Each room needs to be reserved in advance on this floor. There are floors where the room's right can be purchased, so reserving a room is unnecessary. A private room sign is made out of platinum, which also helps denote the resources involved to have access to one. Making sure that Han understood, Val took them down the hallway and left behind the main area. As they walked down the corridor, Han saw doors on either side of him. Based on how far apart they were spaced, these rooms were likely of a significant size. Each of the doors had no windows or handles to gain access. Trying to figure out how one would get into a room, he saw that Val had stopped by one of the doors. "My lord, when you reserve a room, all you need to do is swipe your identification card on the sign next to the door. The room will recognize your card and automatically open up." Val then swiped the card and the door went into the room and slid off to the side. Upon entering the room, the thing he noticed was how blank it looked. The entire room was made out of a white material, though it didn't look as if it was made in pieces. Looking close at the wall, Han saw there was a faint line, letting him know that it wasn't one giant solid piece. Having them fit so tightly together really showed the level of work that went to create this room. Pointing at the walls, Val explained to him, "These walls are made out of a material that neutralizes magic, while also displaying the magic that was directed into them." She placed her hand on the wall opposite the door, and a screen appeared with various indicators on it. After tapping on different parts of the screen, Val turned to the wall furthest from them. On this wall, there were some targets that appeared. Val then faced him and said, "My lord, these targets will be used to judge your magical abilities. Please use your strongest spell to attack these targets. After completing this, we will move on to speed and finish with simulated combat." "Is it possible for me to have multiple attempts? I am unsure how much this wall can withstand and would prefer not to cause any damages." "What method is used to measure a spell's power?" Han asked, trying to make it sound like a reasonable request. Based on Val's expression, this was a very unusual one. "My lord, normally we only allow a student to use one spell to measure the strength of the spell. To allow a student multiple tries is unprecedented. This room is built to handle extremely powerful spells based on the assessment of your servants. I assure you that this room can handle the spell you'd be using, so there is no need for concern. A spell is measured by a letter grade, where a triple S is the highest rank and F is the lowest. This room is graded to withstand an S-level spell," Val expressed delicately. After hearing this, Han felt a little annoyed. While presenting his strength would be a hassle, allowing him to see a weak spell would have an equally bad result. Like Val explained, this academy used magic to judge the ability of a student, so Han needed to use enough power to demonstrate to the student council that their assumptions were well founded. Letting out a heavy sigh of frustration, he looked at the target and said, "Burn."